Well, hey there, friends. Good morning. How's it going? Sound check complete. So we're gonna start off the day. I'm gonna move into the frame, and we are going to have a little conversation about where training falls in the spectrum of health and fitness. Ooh, I am slightly out of frame, which is not the point, although I can appreciate that the view maybe is slightly better than when I'm in it. But here we are. We're going to talk about training specifically and why training in general in the frame of health and fitness maybe is slightly overrated. Okay, we're having some issues with the internet here. Let's see if they persist, and otherwise we are going to get started. There we go. It seems that everything is working, which is great. So, friends, it's always a bit hard to do all of this while traveling without all of the comforts and amenities of the home. But it seems like we are now connected and we have and we have a stream. Cool. Hey, so listen, for those of you who are watching, my name is Toby. I am 41 years old and I'm training to live an active, self-sufficient and adventurous life. I do so by minding my sleep. I try to sleep between 7 and 9 hours in a night. I do so by minding what I eat. I try to eat within my energy balance, which for me is around 2200 calories. And if that number shocks you, we can talk about that. You can ask me about it in the chat. That is like my maintenance to stay where I am. I try to eat a lot of vegetables. I think there's a lot of good stuff in salads, fruits, vegetables, natural, fresh foods that are unprocessed that help keep me fit, healthy, and energized. And I try to hit sufficient protein for my strength and muscle building goals. Overall, although I'm having a little debate with myself into what the bandwidth is of protein that I'm trying to consume versus the results I'm trying to get, whether I should be at the higher end of 150 grams or at the lower end of 70 to 80 grams, and then which kinds of sources I should be considering as well. And I'm experimenting with a lot more plant-based foods and minimizing my meat and fish intake for health reasons, not for any other reasons, just because there might be some health benefits there that I'm not aware of. So let's see what my research digs up. Then there is the training. I do strength training, I do strength conditioning training, I do endurance training, I do HIIT, I do mobility training. Basically, I run the gamut of different modalities of training, generally with a kettlebell. The last couple of weeks, last month, I should say, I've been focused on a lot of steady state endurance because I injured my back while weightlifting, and I'm still not at the point where I am comfortable or confident in trying to lift heavy weights off the floor, so I'm taking it easy in the weightlifting department. Besides that, I try to spend time with people I love and care about. I think investing in relationships is important, my family and my friendships. I try to do things that I generally enjoy, like creating the streams, videos, also telling stories, creative writing, and I try to be a part, or at least a bit active in the communities that I'm a part of. So whether that's the street with the neighbors, or a sports club, or work, right? There are different places where I participate in a social circle. These are not per se my friends, but we all share something in common, and try to be at least an active participant in the community and what goes on in the community. And there you have more or less a recipe for what I think is going to be a healthy and active and useful life. I think today, in this setting, right, and we have the sound of the ocean, or the sea, I should say, lapping the shore right behind me. We have a little boat lying off there in the bay. I'm not sure you can see it, but I think that's a wonderful place to end and start the day, actually. We've got the gulls flying around. We've got the crescent moon um, in the sky over there, beautifully aligned with a star, I think, by the way. And let's see, it is dawn. It is 6:39 a.m. and we are about to get started with this day. And I think the start of the day makes for a great moment to sit and reflect, and to talk a little bit about training and living, right? Because a part of the philosophy I have about staying healthy and fit and active, about trying to live an active and adventurous life, is that life is about staying active and busy. And for the longest time, and maybe you recognize this in yourself, being active and busy has been equated to doing sports, to the gym, to fitness, to working out. But the more I dive into the subject, and the more I actually try to live this experience and try to keep myself healthy for what life has to offer, the more I realize how fractional the part training actually plays in staying fit and healthy. It's an important part in some ways, but you could do without and still stay relatively fit and healthy, and maybe even healthier than most, if you were living a healthy life. If you were living an active life, not a healthy life, well, a healthy lifestyle as well, but an active and healthy lifestyle. Because in many different ways, training is a bit of a surrogate for the things we don't do but were built to do. So for example, this week we've been on holidays here on the island. As you can see, it's quite rocky. I am at the bottom of a little cove here. There are stairs. Everything seems to be an uphill or a downhill walk. There are relatively few stretches of straight land to walk across, or bike across, or run across. And the general tendency here is to walk to places throughout the day. So we're going to walk to the beach. So we walk up the hill, we turn right, we walk up and down a couple of hills, then we go down long stairs to the beach, we walk across the beach. Beach we sit, we're in and out of the water, we're digging because we have two little kids. We're carrying water around, maybe we're playing with a ball, then we're sitting a little bit, then we're doing a little bit more of activities, then we go for a little walk looking for rocks or exploring the beach, and then when we're done with that, we go back up and we walk back up to the hill back to the hotel where we're staying. We relax a little bit, we have some food, and then that cycle kind of continues throughout the day. But overall, I'm hitting like 25,000 steps in a day just by being being active and being around here. That's a good, to put that into perspective, probably 3 to 4 hours of movement and activity. Sometimes I'm carrying something heavy around, or we have a backpack on our backs, probably 2 or 3 kilos. Nothing exceptionally heavy, but still something that is weighted. Yeah. Gonto Miaktine. Um, I don't know how to pronounce that name, but thanks for dropping by and saying hi. I hope you're doing well where you're at in the world, and I appreciate you dropping by and saying hello this morning and letting me know that you're here and watching. Um, it's 6:45 a.m. by the way. It's dawn where I'm at. The day is about to start, and I'm just done with my morning workout. So now we're here to have a little chat about health and fitness. So that is an active day, right? That's 3 to 4 hours of activity with a little bit of load, carrying things, walking around. Sometimes my heart rate will go up because I wear a heart rate monitor. Right, very steep climb or some stairs. Generally speaking, we're staying in zone 1 or zone 2, and we're just moving around. And a lot of these activities are things that we try to emulate and modulate with general training or training for general health and fitness, right? We're trying to get our heart rate up a little bit. We're trying to lift a little bit of weights. We're trying to put a little bit of strain on our body for 20, 30 minutes at a time. And then we move on to the rest of the day. But the function of training for me is to really increase the capacity of my body system, so my bone density, bone mineral density, my cardiorespiratory system, and my musculature, right? To challenge them in such a way that I am actually stronger, that I stay stronger, that I am more capable, that I am able to run, sprint, jump, climb, crawl, lift um, heavy things a bit more than might be expected today to stay strong, to stay fit. It's very specific. But even without those kinds of impulses, if I were going around every day and I were to carry a heavy bag of groceries in one hand and then in the other hand, if I were walking uphill for 10 to 15 minutes every day, if I were spending most of my day walking to and from different places, if I also allowed myself the time for that, so instead of a 20-minute train ride, I would have a 15-minute train ride and a 15-minute walk to the office, just as an idea, right? Um, that combination of activities throughout the day um, would already give my body sufficient impulses to actually stay relatively fit and healthy and active. Okay, and I think it's important to realize that. Good morning, Jees. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping by, and I hope you're doing. I hope you're doing well where you're at in the world. They're nicely and happily sleeping while Bad's out getting his morning workout and his morning live stream in to work on that part of my personal development and something that I enjoy before the day starts. And it's all about, or mostly about, the kids and having fun with the kids again. But I think we're all doing good. I hope you're doing well. Let me know how you're doing, and how's your son doing with his stream and with his channel. I hope he's doing all right. So overall, throughout the day, if we are doing things, we are probably already giving our body enough of an impulse to stay healthy. Now, why am I repeating this and saying this out loud? It's because I don't think we realize how low the bar is to actually be healthy in our day-to-day life, and how our environment and our lifestyle and our habits have been designed and evolved over the last 20 or 30 years to completely eradicate, even those minimum levels of activity into our day to day. So, generally speaking, right, we sit too much, we eat too much, um, and we connect too little, we distract ourselves too much to actually be generally healthy and doing the things that we were made to do as human beings. We go to sleep, we're lying down. We wake up, we have breakfast, we're probably sitting. We get in our car or get in our train. Maybe there's a 1 minute walk, maybe there's a 5 minute walk to the commute station. Then we're sitting, or we're standing still. Sorry. Standing still, sitting, I'd say equally bad because we're not moving. Okay, we're using our legs a bit more when we're standing, but it's not necessarily that much better to be just standing still because we're not active. Then we're sitting at a desk, right? Unless we have a physically demanding job, or we're standing at a counter, or we're sitting and standing throughout the day. Then we sit on our commute back, we sit down for dinner, and then we sit down for entertainment, and then we lie down for sleep again. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is nourishment, food, what we eat, how we're eating, and specifically how much we're eating. So hey, very good, good for him. That's a big step. I think that is, especially at a young age, one of the cool things that we can do now is we can create these little businesses with relatively low opportunity costs or upfront investments in this digital space. But that's really cool. Congratulations, congratulate him for me. And I think kudos for the dedication to building a channel and making it as big as he could possibly make it by this time. And I wish him all the best and what's going to happen in the future. So it's also about nourishment, right? So there's movement and there's nourishment, there's eating. There are so many opportunities to eat. And I think we sometimes forget that in general, like I said at the start of the stream, my maintenance is 2,200 calories in a day. It is relatively easy to get there with 2 meals and a snack. It really is. If I were to just eat my breakfast and a slightly larger portion of dinner, and maybe in the middle of the day have some fruits and 1 slice of bread with some peanut butter and jam or something like that, I would most likely get very close to that 2,200 calories in a day, all right? So every time we go out and we sit down with a cup of coffee and we have that cookie, and then we have the pastry or the cake with that, or we walk through a grocery store and we pick up a sleeve of treats, cookies, crisps, other processed foods, candies. We have that ice cream after that full meal. We sit on the couch in the evening and we're snacking, and those usually aren't cucumbers and cherry tomatoes, right? They're hearty foods, salty foods, nuts, crisped, fried, generally. We are adding that surplus of energy, those extra calories, to our daily intake. And it's that that's not necessarily a bad thing to have sufficient food, because sufficient food makes sure that we're well nourished, that we're growing, that we have all the nutrients we need to actually keep our body functioning. But there is a point where it becomes too much, and too much consistently over time, paired with too little movement and activity, becomes a problem. All right? Just a little fact of life right there, something worth considering and looking at. So what do? We start to train, and when we train, we start to get very specific about the foods we eat. We start to eat protein bars and protein shakes, and lots of chicken, and lots of white fish, because that's healthy, right? And then suddenly we're all in on this, well, because we're training, we need that. And I think there is a part where we're getting the necessity of training for health and for living um, somewhat, somewhat wrong, and our view of it is somewhat skewed. Eating and sleeping is what is aware of that. Does it do or do not? Justin, thanks for dropping by. I hope you're doing well, and I appreciate you dropping by and saying hello. And I hope life is treating you well where you're at. And I think I also struggled with eating and sleeping a lot. Actually, sleeping has only been a project of mine for the last year. So I'm 40, so you can imagine that I've had 40 years of um, inappropriate, not inappropriate, that's not the right word, of insufficient sleep quality throughout my life that I also need to catch up on. And it's only become a serious thing for me after I had 2 kids and I saw what lack of sleep really was doing to my ability to function and what actually good nights of sleep were doing for me. So it's worth to keep that in mind, and it can take time to figure that out. Not aided by their government. Geese, those are great questions. Um, From colleagues I have in America, I know like their first year they got 10 holidays, and then I think over time it gets to like 15 maybe. Yeah, I have 26 holidays I think in a year, barring the public holidays. And generally there is a healthy emphasis, depending on the type of job, but even then in general, a healthy emphasis between the amount worked and the amount of leisure that we have and the income we have to support that. There are a lot of regulations and safeguards for employees in this country, for sure. I find my work-life balance to strike a very good balance between the amount of work and effort and the time that I have to pursue other things outside of work, and also the amenities and protections and benefits that I enjoy from being employed and being well where I'm at. So yeah, I think generally in Europe um, it is relatively well. Um, um, there's a relatively healthy structure, maybe compared to other places in the world. So striking, so why do we get so obsessed with food when we're training? But why aren't we obsessed with good food just in general as a means to an end? So not training specific, but just life specific, that we want to be eating proper and good foods, the right kinds of nutrients throughout the day, and understanding the importance that food and nutrition actually plays in maintaining a healthy body. And that means that food plays a role in how we're fueled, the energy we have, the focus we have, but also the ability our body has to maintain its weight, the ability our body has to repair itself, the ability our body has to um, overall stay lean and healthy, and function properly for life without being obsessed with training, because you can already win a lot by just, starting to eat a lot better and a lot differently. The movement crisis, or the lack of movement crisis that we're experiencing, is one that we need to consider from a different perspective. And that is that despite training for 30 minutes to 60 minutes in a day, and I obviously do a bit more than most, is not a surrogate for an active life. So my health is good, I think, at this point in time, not because of the training. The training is really a minimal part of that. Like I said, the training serves to make my muscles stronger, keep my bone mineral density challenged and up, keep my cardiorespiratory system challenged, but to increase that capacity so that when I go for a walk throughout the day with a colleague and we're talking about business, we're having a walking meeting, or when I'm playing with the kids and we're running around kicking a football around, or when I need to crawl up or climb up a flight of stairs while we're on holidays carrying the pram or one of the kids, or the pram and one of the kids, the stroller and one of the kids, and a backpack or 2 huge bags of groceries. I am able to do that without feeling like I'm about to pass out or, you know, um, get so out of breath that I feel that something is wrong with me. But that increase in capacity, generally, I could do without, but do all of the little things that I do throughout the day. Um, and there could be a little bit more lifting, maybe something like gardening, or a game like hobby, like bouldering, where muscles are challenged in different ways, and be relatively fit and healthy. You won't look like an Instagram model, or a YouTube model, or a magazine model with with that approach, but that is generally also not the goal, right? Um, because if that were the goal, we would be talking about very different things, because I don't think that the things you need to do to look that way are generally related to health. They're actually very much related to uh, starving yourself, finding a good time to do a photo opportunity, um, pushing your muscle growth, eating in a specific way to develop those kinds of muscles, that are not generally aligned with the guidelines for a healthy and active life. So if we park the aesthetics and the way we want to look for life um, for a moment, and get that out of our head, that health has nothing to do with looks, then training, which also is associated with the way we look, and the way we appear, and the size of our muscles and body often, um, becomes less important, and we can start to focus on other things like sleep, like nutrition, like activity, and see training really for what it is. And training really is just that little bit of stuff that we do to help support that long-term health, longevity, activity, by ensuring that the capacity our body has to perform simple tasks stays slightly better than we might expect, given the decline and deterioration we might experience as we age. So we need to revisit the constructs, the beliefs, the understanding, the role we attribute to training, um, as a part of living healthy. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I say it can be a part of the recipe, but there are so many other things that we can do that are maybe easier and more accessible for us to make healthier choices and be healthier throughout life. And that's all I have for you today, friends. Next video was 8 paid holidays. There you go. Yeah, so that's slightly different, right? and different cultures do things in different ways. But I think you were talking about moving to Portugal. I think you might appreciate the work-life balance, but there are different career opportunities here than compared to, for example, the United States. I think that there's a very different economic reality with a different upside and downside. I think ours is a bit more level in that way. Friends, for those of you who are watching, my name is Toby. I'm 41 years old and I'm training to live an active, self-sufficient and adventurous life. I do so by minding my sleep, minding what I eat, um, showing up for an active life, which includes being active throughout the day and training. Try to spend time with people I love and care about, do things that I enjoy, actively participate in communities that I'm a part of, and generally try to live a stress-free life. If any of that's interesting to you, go ahead, check out my channel, subscribe, and we can continue the conversation. This is about the way I feel, not about the way I look. I would like to feel fit, capable, and competent for whatever life is going to throw at me. And life can throw a lot at us, so let's be mindful of what life has to offer. And remember, we're good just the way we are. We've got to love ourselves before we can move on. It's the person we are today who's going to get us to where we want to be tomorrow. So a bit of kindness is probably going to go a long way. And there are enough people out there who want to put us down. So remember that we just need to lift ourselves up every chance we get. And the only way to get anything done, friends, is by showing up and doing the work. And that being said, enjoy the view, and I will see you tomorrow. And remember, friends, subscribe.